I need to confess something. Yesterday I borrowed Rob's time machine. I went forward to 2036. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely more calmer. It was more coherent. It was more human. And I want to tell you about a particular moment that got under my skin. I always put something that makes me feel emotional and end up crying on it. I cried with Rob. So my little sister is pregnant at the moment with her second child. It's going to be her first son. So I thought, where better to go when I'm going forward to 2036 to visit my 9-year-old nephew. So in 2036, I visited him. He was 9 years old, full of questions, full of that brutal honesty that only kids of a certain age can pull off. Let's call him Terry, because I've been trying to get my sisters and my mates to call their kid Terry for years, and no one seems to want to do it. We're a dying breed, you know. I've only ever met one Terry who's younger than me. Like, hands up in the room. Does anyone know a Terry under 40? No, I didn't think so. No. Same goes for Normans and Jeffs and Trevor. We've got a Jeff. We've got a Jeff over there. So, Terry is 9. We're sat together on a bench on the tree-lined pedestrian road in front of my sister's house, and he's telling me about school and what they've been learning. And in 2036, kids are learning about the economy in a way that would make most 2026 economists cry. So I tried to explain to him how in 2026 we had this weird thing where we separated it all out. We had the economy over here, we had society over here, and somewhere in the black background we had almost like a scenic backdrop, an optional, the planet. Terry looked at me like I told him we genuinely believe the earth is flat. He lost his shit when I tried to explain trickle-down economics. Then he asks, Uncle Tezza, what did you do when it didn't work? Then it got a bit awkward. I said, well, most of us sort of doubled down for a bit. We kept celebrating the people who are best exploiting human psychology to manufacture demand for things that had no intrinsic value. We called it innovation, we called it growth, we called it success. Whilst in 2036 I learned the phrase addiction of accumulation, trying to meet real needs in all the wrong ways. It was taught the way we might teach kids about sugar and teeth now. Terry listened to all this, and then he asks, but Uncle Tezza, didn't people in 2026 watch Star Wars? Well, yeah, of course they did. And he said, well, so why did you keep acting like the Empire were the good guys? I tried to explain that we were still somehow running on autopilot with the wrong kind of fuel, drunk on the notion that money was a proxy for value, that growth was always good, that the market would always fix it. Now, here's the bit that made me emotional when I went to 2036. In 2036, there is no social enterprise sector. There is no social enterprise sector. It's just called enterprise, because there's no longer an acceptable version of enterprise that isn't explicitly accountable to people and the planet. It's not that everything became easy. It's just that the baseline shifted. In the same way that we now find it inconceivable that people would smoke in hospital wards or on airplanes. They find it inconceivable to run an enterprise that externalizes harm and calls it success. And then I asked, what changed? Do you know what they said? They didn't say a hero arrived. They didn't say one policy fixed it. They didn't say technology saved us. They said we grew up. They said we built infrastructure of care. They said we slowed down just enough to find each other again. And honestly, when I heard that, I thought of Sheffield. I thought of the people in this room. We are close enough to the edge to see it clearly for what it is. Yet we have enough love for this city and for each other to decide it does not have to be this way. To decide to make room for dignity at work and also rest, joy, the basic human stuff that makes any of this sustainable. Because if we want a future that we can fall in love with, then the way we build it has to be part of the future too. But I want to say something plainly. Our sector is tired of being asked to deliver miracles on projects with resources that barely cover the basics. And we are tired of being treated like a nice extra, expected to patch up the holes created by decisions we were not in the room to shape, with the real resources flowing elsewhere. If Sheffield is serious about the Sheffield City goals, if Sheffield is serious about people, planet and prosperity, then social enterprise cannot stay in the margins. And if we keep underfunding and undervaluing that work, we are not being prudent. We are being reckless. We are choosing much higher costs later in every possible sense. And if we are serious about the 2036 baseline shift, yes, we need to encourage and support social enterprising in all its forms. But when we talk about an impact economy, we should also not be neutral about governance. We should not be legal structure agnostic. Because ownership is not a technical detail. Ownership is politics. It decides who benefits, who has a voice, and what happens when purpose and profit collide, as we debated this morning. Democratic ownership models hardwire public good by design, not just by intention. So yes, championing social enterprising in all its forms as part of an impact economy on the road to transition. But if we want to change the default of enterprise in this city, we need to make it easier, not harder, to choose structures that hardwire fairness and accountability for people and the planet. Now, I want to bring us back to little Terry in 2036, because he asked me one more question that I keep thinking about. He said, "So Uncle Tezza, what did you all do about it?" And this is when I told him about all of you. I told him that in the middle of all that, there were people who refused to accept that extraction, exploitation, and inequality were simply how reality worked. People who said, we are not going to wait for permission to build a different economy. People who said, we can meet needs without extracting the dignity. People who said relationships are not soft, they're strategic. And I told him that the work was not only technical, it was emotional. Because you can't build a future worth living in with burnt out people who have forgotten how to feel joy. You can't build resilience as a grim duty. And I said to little Terry back in 2026, lots of people still thought about social enterprise like it was a niche. He pulled that same face again, the one that says, "Are you winding me up?" And he said, "Yeah, same way the Empire in Star Wars thought the Ewoks were irrelevant." The Ewoks didn't win because they had the best kit. They didn't win because they had the biggest budget. They won because they knew the terrain, they trusted each other, and they fought for what they loved. And that, for me, is what falling in love with the future actually means. It means letting our doing arise not from a panicked sense of everything being broken, but from a deep remembering of what matters and what we owe one another. So my closing invitation is this. Let's stop asking whether social enterprise works and start asking why extraction is still treated as normal. Let's stop behaving like the future belongs to the people with the most money and the strongest lobbying teams. And let's build here in Sheffield the conditions for a city where enterprise is simply how we take care of one another while meeting needs. Where social enterprise is not a niche because the economy has finally grown up. If 2036 is going to be a place where there is no social enterprise, just enterprise, it won't happen because someone powerful finally sees the light. It will happen because ordinary people decide the old story no longer gets to run the show. So, may we be soft enough to care and strong enough to act. Thank you all for being part of this journey.